Hello. Welcome to episode 8 of the End of the Beginning podcast. In this episode, we talk about becoming more consciously conscious, refinement of finely tuned senses, the effects of fixing external issues instead of internal issues, and how the desire of materialistic things can be spiritual. We discuss chemical versus spiritual highs. Are you making yourself small, and what would happen if you expanded into your biggest self? We hope that you enjoy what you hear, and if you'd like to submit any questions for upcoming episodes, please contact us at theendofthebeginningpodcast@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Instagram. Thanks for listening.
So it's curious when you have a thread that feels inspired and then something intervenes, something phenomenal, something circumstantial, random stuff, and then you go, that was really good, let's get back to that. And I feel like that, from my experience, that doesn't tend to put me on a good track. I'm chasing an old moment, and it's actually, if it were inspired, it'd be available. It'd be here and now. And that's really tempting because it was inspired. So you said inspired. It is inspired. Or it was inspired, but it's not available right now. So it'll circle back if it's meant to.
Yeah.
And otherwise it's not here. It's kind of my thing. And I'm not saying that because it's right or wrong.
Did you see it as a form of guidance?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I never used to think like that until a friend of mine pointed it out. And they were like, blah, blah, blah. And this is, and then someone interrupted a conversation. He's like, I must tell you about, and then someone came into the room and he went, I'm not supposed to tell you about that.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, what the hell are you talking about?
So when you say guidance, so it's a refinement of either living in flow or with tension.
How do you mean?
Yeah. So living in some state of surrender.
Yeah.
So if the
you're
universe
flowing with the river, or you're trying to push it uphill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If the universe was your best friend, and your lover, and I was going to say the other half of you, but really it's more like it's 99% of you, and you're the other 1%, but it's completely you, and so incredibly supportive, complementary, and symbiotic with you being individuated into this Paul thing. So
how would it guide
there's the
you?
illusion of separation and of utter unification at once, so that the system isn't broke, it's beautiful, and then it's guiding you towards something or away from something. And it's almost like a posturing, like using yoga as a metaphor, like what asana, what position are you adopting, and is it the most optimal one to work with this moment, or is there elements of resistance? There could be outright resistance, like something really triggered and tantrumy or whatever, which has its beauty because that gives us an opportunity to see it and feel it and work with it. But perhaps more often it's actually sort of partial. So there's a degree of tension. So, that was a beautiful inspired thing we were just talking about, and then something intervenes that is not random, it's divine. Because there's nothing that isn't. So there, like a baby cries and someone has to go check the baby, or a dog barks and someone, I left the dog outside, I got to let the dog in. You come back and you go, it doesn't feel, we've lost the thought. Where is it? Let's get back there. You can spend so much energy.
Yeah, just trying to.
And some of it's like, that felt so good, I don't want to miss out. But the other side of that coin is that, like, right now is not enough. And I guess the opportunity to open up and feel that right now is always enough.
Do you feel the invitation into that way of living is perhaps becoming more refined? If you're a kind of a blunt force instrument in your life, you're probably going to miss those kind of finer things.
Yeah, I think you're describing becoming more conscious. Moment to moment. And yes, that plays right into being more present because you skim over these things.
Yeah.
And in my experience, it's one thing to do it alone in the cave, in the quiet, in the sanctuary. Sometimes that looks like earpods on the train and closed eyes and stuff and hoodie over, and can be beautifully healthy. Easy to do in the cave, or increasingly easy to do in the cave with some practice. and then more difficult to do out in the world. This literal practice, but also metaphor of eye-open meditation. It's like you can do it when you remove all the senses. Usually we're even incense, music, and volume control and no distractions. Like we're actually buffering or desensitizing or something, soothing, putting to sleep all the senses. Touch, because physicality stops as well. We find a position of comfort, cushion behind your back, whatever you need to do, like a bunch of hip opening stretches or whatever. In a mechanical, really fiercely functional way, we are, you could say, disarming the ability for these senses to gather more input, to be stimulated. And so you're dialing them all down. I'm thinking of taste and how that's affected, but obviously food's not part of it.
You're reminding me of and I've spoken to you about this at length, the telepathy tapes thing.
Somebody mentioned it to me yesterday again.
Did they? There is a section where, spoilers, there is a section where they talk about how some kids can just be in a room and I guess they go into their room and then they go to this place on the hill they talk about where all of them go to meet. But then there are other kids who...
So Paul's describing these telepathy tapes, which I have not seen, but it's a docuseries investigating, exploring the heightened and peripheral, like auxiliary sensitivities that people with neurodivergence, maybe exclusively ASD?
I think at this stage. I mean, there's a teacher that he teaches how to do it.
Yeah, so a bunch of autistic kids are able to communicate in
non-verbally
alternate ways.
Yeah,
the
with
telepathy tapes. So they go to a hill, which is an astral
meeting,
place.
The meeting on the hill.
Yeah,
but some of the kids, speaking to what you were talking about, some of the kids have to have blankets on themselves, have to have quiet, and in fact, one of the kids, I think, says we all are born with the ability to be telepathic. It's just that our five senses are so overwhelming and so gross and so powerful. The inputs are so strong that we just never learn to do it. Which is pretty interesting. It kind of speaks to what you're talking about.
Okay.
When we go into meditation and how we remove these high-powered, they're almost the animal, like they're very animalistic. Part of ourselves.
Primal.
Yeah, primal. You remove those senses and go into the other space, which is what they're talking about, and the connection of consciousness.
There's an assertion there that it is discretionary. It's not the best word, but it's like a power you can recruit or a part of yourself that you can use.
You can refine and train,
Yeah. Or
become aware
you're
of. You're
also saying turn the volume down elsewhere, become less distracted, and allow through.
Yeah, sure.
That's, I don't know, the podcast is an example. To the extent that our conversations in the consumption of are any good, to the extent that they have any value to a consumer, I think is directly linked to how much we can get out of our own way and let something through. Which again brings us back to this buzzword of authenticity.
Or surrender,
Right. Well, exactly. Surrender would suggest that there's some stuff in the way. There's a tension of me pushing upstream, and once I move downstream, things become very natural. But also not silent necessarily. Whatever arises is whatever arises. And if I feel an impulse to say something, it's like, I'm going to choose to say it then. It's like, well, I'm actually going to choose to not get in the way of it. It's rude. Let me fix that. I don't like
Did
that
it buzz or something?
Yeah, it buzzed. All
right. I didn't even
it's
hear
on
it.
vibrate, not silent. Should be do not disturb for this.
Again, maybe that's
exactly
a pattern interrupt.
Well, I wonder about. So my phone just rang. We'll probably edit. That's another cough.
We might not.
Yeah.
I mean, it would
be more, we'd edit some, but
be more authentic to just let it roll.
Exactly. Exactly that. So something has just intervened. It's never not what's going on.
Yeah.
Someone asked me the other day, like, I don't know, essentially it's like, do you think that sometimes it's divine intervention when these things come along? There was a dialogue early in the pod, like, do sometimes kids birth out of certain parents because of karmic alignment or whatever? And it's like, what do we mean sometimes? I'm not sure. So sometimes it's a like pre-carnal, intentional act of souls doing a certain kind of work, and at other times it's totally benign and random. There's no way.
It's either it's
all a
it's
miracle
either happening
or none of it
it's
is.
not. Yeah.
Which I think is an Einstein thing.
Well, it's very like, I think we again have mentioned this earlier, but it's like you don't get to choose when it turns on and when it turns off. It's on all the time.
Yeah.
So if you're living from a place of I am consciousness creating this physical experience, you don't really get a moment to go, oh, I'm biology creating my consciousness. It doesn't, like you can't flip.
As if it's do you mean the inference there that it's an illusion then? That we're kidding ourselves or something?
No, I mean like, I use an extreme example when I'm trying to understand it in myself, is that God loves all of us always, all the time, with a deep ferocity and power.
Yeah.
All the time. It doesn't stop. The example that I use, which is really extreme because I guess it's the one that I have the most trouble with, is that if God loves you with an intensity and power all of the time, with all of its being, it also loves the things you can't love or can't find the ability to love. Rapists, murderers, pedophiles, that dark energy.
Culprits, perpetrators.
Yeah. And you can't, you don't get to switch that off, which is a conundrum for me. I haven't solved that yet. I haven't found peace with the idea that we cause harm to each other. I can not bypass it. It does feel a little bypassy when I do it and go, but that's karma playing out, or that is, you're only doing it to yourself. That's you doing it to you. It's me doing it to me,
Yeah.
But I haven't really gotten to a place of peace with it inside myself. I still judge actually, like, strangely enough, I have real empathy and pity for, particularly for like pedophiles, because I know this is controversial, but I think it's like 90% of them were abused themselves. And so there's this weird glitch that's happened in their growth that has normalized this abnormal behavior. And I think of the child that happened to, and that's where, not pity is the wrong thing. It's just a hard existence.
Compassion, pity.
Yeah, compassion and empathy.
They bleed into one another, compassion and pity.
Which is strange because they're in turn passing on this trauma to other people and to other souls. So it's strange to even saying it out loud feels icky.
Oh, it's very charged.
But
in
it
our
is
culture.
true. It that is the truth inside me. I have a sadness for the intensity and pain of their existence.
So forgive the antagonism of this. What's a perpetrator you don't have compassion for? Can you give an example? So it sounded like there was an element of discovery. They're so maligned by our society. They do not fit. They are not welcome.
Yeah, I wonder if it's
assertion.
more of a social construct inside of me that still sits there going, you have to damn these people. You can't, you know what I mean? Like, you can't have any compassion for these people because they've done these horrible things. I don't know. Have you ever had a dream where you murdered somebody?
I can't think of one.
I have. I was defending my daughter and I killed this guy who was attacking both of us. He wasn't just attacking me. Obviously, it's a part of myself. But then I was like, oh no. Once it was done, I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life. And that's heavy. And when I woke up, I was so relieved. I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God I don't... and that makes me think, there are psychopaths. We have psychopaths and we have sociopaths. Again, they lack the hardware is kind of one of the modern understandings, is like this computer just can't load this empathy program. It doesn't have that. Organ is not refined enough to load that program. Killing somebody, for example, would be its own burden to bear. And the pain that would lead someone to be able to commit and act like that, the brutality that they would have had to have been through to think that that is an answer to anything. You know what I mean? Like,
You mean the part of themselves they would have to blunten, silence, buffer,
Yeah.
suppress to be able to
yeah.
execute?
I don't know. Sometimes there is a part of me too that's like, am I talking from a privileged point of view right now? Because I've never experienced those things, you know? I've never experienced, like, my parents are wonderful. They're really kind and beautiful and loving. And so I've never experienced really any violence in my life other than I was punched in the face a couple of times at school during heightened.
Teenage boy moment.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I've never really seen, and there's kids that just grow up and it's normalized, hey?
Yeah. Well, we could use geography as the variable and go, well, different parts of the world, but time, chronology is the one.
Yeah.
There's times where we've all been, if you believe in incarnation, we've all been exposed to really intense acts of all of the things. To me, perhaps the most intriguing part of all that is there's only one of us in the room, the sort of premise of interconnectivity, and therefore we're all culprits and all perpetrators, and so on that level there are no perpetrators and culprits. There's sort of just divine intention for us to play all these things out. So it's sort of like the Matrix simulation idea. We're in this simulation and no real harm can happen to the soul, which I think is pertinent and accurate to a level of us, a really important level. But in order to play this game well, this is a spiritual being having a human experience. It's very intentional. It's very deliberate to do that fully, to do that well, to fulfill, I was going to say the obligation, to fulfill the intention of us having come here where we want to interface with with the fullest human experience that we can hold. And so how do we, this is the dilemma of bypass versus way too much human density or something. It's like if it's all real, it becomes quickly exhausting. And if it's all unreal, it becomes quickly exhausting too. So fully honouring the human being and fully honouring the spiritual part. But then realising the dilemma of that and going like, oh, if I'm going to sit with the reality of pedophilia, if I'm going to sit with the reality of whatever, it's really, really fierce. The nuance, thankfully, is just that we're not inspired to sit with all things at once.
Yeah.
Not all issues are for all of
time.
us.
Yeah.
Your life is complex enough for you to work with what is in your chest right now. That can create some strangeness around global issues because it's like, oh, what compels me? But people do have, you could call it ancestral karma or whatever. People tend to have heart ties to certain issues. You do, right? Like there's things that motivate you and there's things that you're like, I feel compassion for those guys, but my plate's kind of full. And then you can deal with all the tension and guilt around that. But again, the universe is our friend. So just showing up to this moment right now and saying, what feels aligned for me to move into? And there's more than enough pain to coexist with. We don't have to go and find peripheral auxiliary pain to integrate. It's right here. What is going on in you right now? So it might be like, it feels really nice to be aligned. I feel like myself. I feel like all the things I need are inside of me. And then all of a sudden I don't feel like that. I don't. I feel anxious. I find myself going, if I could just fix this human relationship, if I could just get enough money over here, if I could just get enough flow, things would be great. But when we adopt a posture in life of trying to fix things externally so that we can relax, so that life can return to, I don't know, the fulfillment. So it can be fun, the fulfillment of the promise of life. So it can be good or it can be tolerable, depending on where we're at. It might be as simple as when we're trying to fix things outside, we tend to spiral. Or it's like holding a bunch of water in your hands with all this tension and it's wobbly and there's pushing forward, back, left, right, that you're getting wobbly and you're trying to hold this water out in front of you. Life itself is this chaotic, kaleidoscopic, unfoldy thingy. And then you're trying to hold it.
Yep.
With all its influences. Like really it's, to maybe in a more elegant way to put it, you're adopting the job of the universe to control material phenomena. That's not your job. Your job is to connect with yourself and see what feels true for you. To connect with yourself and see where your soul wants to go.
But which self? Like the monkey self has a very different opinion than the spiritual self. I don't know if you experience that in your life. Like my monkey self is like, I want a G6, a jet, and I want to be able to go wherever I want all the time. And
why is that necessarily your monkey self?
well, because my spiritual self doesn't care about that. The externalization of my pleasure and desires is like...
See, I'd go, let's explore it.
My spirit...
Sounds like the 5-year-old boy in you wants a G6. That's a wonderful thing to play with.
Yeah.
Let's look at why he wants a G6. Before we go, no, there's not enough G6s to go around.
No, I'm not even going there though. What me is, I'm like the externalization of my happiness, my spirit goes, why would you ever put your power outside of yourself? But then the monkey in me goes, because it's fun and there's lights and there's smells and there's tastes.
They sound amazing. I think we need to be really careful with squashing desires as too materially orientated.
Okay, I see what you mean.
We can forget the pole of it if you like, but just the nuance that's here. I only want to desire pure things, because desire is a huge part of alignment.
No, I thought you were going somewhere else.
Creativity.
I thought you were going somewhere else. But when you said just, desire being just materialism, I was like, I didn't think you were going there. Like you're saying desire is a spiritual endeavor as well?
Of course.
Of materialistic things?
Of course. And that's some of the...
unpack that for me, because I don't understand that at all.
The desire can be spiritual?
Yeah, how can a spiritual desire... How can a desire for materialistic things be spiritual?
Okay, well, yeah, this we cycle through this every couple of episodes, it feels like, so it's great.
Shit, that means I'm not learning a thing.
No, but it's spiralic. So my brain goes, well, where do we start? Because we've touched on this before, but all things are spiralic. There is no issue in your life you'll ever be done with. You expand into a larger holding on that frontier, and then something else will come in, something else, and then you work your way back to it, and you revisit the same things over and over and over. We're always expanding out, so in some ways we're not revisiting anything again because the universe doesn't work in inefficiencies, and yet they're juicy topics like resourcing, like a soul having enough to work with to play out its creativity. So I'm, generally speaking, very wary of any judgment of any desire. If someone wants to have a lot of, exotic sexual experiences that might include multiple partners or whatever, I'd be very curious about what's at the core of that, but not dismissive of the desire. Because in truth, I think back to having MDMA that wasn't even called MDMA in the early 2000s, just ecstasy back then. But those experiences, like having experienced like group bliss moments through kirtan and things like that, where people are high as kites, completely chemical free.
Yeah.
But feeling the unification of joy where you look around and people are ecstatic, and arguably I was going to say that you're seeing the best version of them. That may or may not be true. You're certainly seeing the most loving version because they're rapturously in their heart and celebratory in their everything. And it's the best. Well, it's one of the best things. It's been a long time since I've experienced that, describing it out loud. And then you go to a rave at 18 and experience 200 people on ecstasy at the same time, and there is overlap.
For sure.
And sitting with that, trying to resolve that. One of these is spiritual, the other one's apparently reckless. Culturally, we would regard it as reckless and acceptable in some ways, because it's like if you observe, the youth tend to experiment. That's an accepted thing. We try to govern it or suppress it in certain ways and funnel it in the right directions. But illegal drugs have been around for forever.
Yes.
For as long as we could work out how to make them. So maybe that's an interesting contrast or metaphor for what you were just sort of asking. One of those is overtly spiritual and the other one isn't, but it's the same desire in the human being that arrives at both of those moments. I want to feel connected. Both of those, perhaps anybody who's had MDMA or ecstasy could attest that it's, in its orientation, it's about heart opening and union. You feel really connected to people.
Yeah.
And perhaps, as a consequence, safe. or coming home. So coming back to something we've discussed earlier, every momentum, every inclination, every desire in us is to experience an aspect of God, experience an aspect of self. That's a joy to experience. So everything in the end comes down to joy. The reason you would want to have a wonderful relationship, the reason you would want to traverse limiting fears and anxieties in your life is so you could attain more peace and more celebration of life. Why do you want more peace? Is it enough to say, I just want more peace? Well, there's always more questions, perhaps. Most of them end in some form of joy. I want to experience more abundance in my life of something, of healthy relationships or provisioning in wealth or the dearth of anxiety or whatever, because it would be more fun. So when we say, where's the spirituality and desire? Because everything simmers down to some version of fun in the end. This is joyous to the universe. There's nothing serious going on on the spiritual end of the stick. Somehow, working in 3, 4, 5 dimensions, that integrates the fact that there's a lot of suffering. But when we coexist with suffering enough that it can loosen and old vibrations and misunderstandings can dissolve, and they allow us to stretch and grow and hold more of ourselves and dance out more of the wonder that we are. Tacky, but the MDMA of God kicking in right at the right time, our own divinity button getting pressed. It's joyous. It's joyous. So I think it does come up a bit, but maybe it'll continue to happen. I am present to traditional spiritual cultures being, let's say, relatively judgmental or apparently judgmental around desire. And I think desire is one of the things I feel strongly about is to be stepped into and worked with and stared down or something. And even that's got a negative intonation to it. Explored, yeah, and be right there with it. Be right there with it. I think that we become increasingly creative the more that we grow. And once you're clear in an embodied way that you're a spiritual being having a human experience, what else is there to do? But note the desires that you have.
Well, they say that anything that you push away, you give more power to, right?
Okay.
So the natural inclination for there is like investigate or explore everything that you feel or everything that you experience. Go in behind it. Try and find what the catalyst is. The seed,
yeah, of course. But without we're not regarding desires. I'm inviting us not to regard desires as a consequence of trauma that we want to explore, hold, and heal. But if you healed everything, there will still be desires for change because we are more fluid than static. That is our nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so God gets very excited about God's own infinity. And God, in this case, happens to be called Paul. And Paul's very excited about exploring his own newness. And it manifests as desire in his system. So the way you get clear about that is by having human experiences of a lack of something. So go get a G6.
The only reason I said G6 is like, or is it, there's a song?
Apex.
Isn't there a song? Or is it a G5? I'm in a G5. Or is it a G6?
We're probably saying the wrong thing. But yeah, Gulfstream.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also another little layering of that would be like if owning a Gulfstream is a lofty concept, then it'll stay lofty. To people who are around that all the time, it gets normalized. You think people are really special who are inside Gulfstreams, and you know this from many things you've shared with me, and then you get to know them and you're like, he's got no more or less happiness day to day than I do.
Yeah.
And maybe in some ways he's got less because he feels a little less connected or whatever. But there's real empowerment in the normalization of those things everything. And those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I used to, as a kid, I started working for a radio station back in Christchurch. And they had those, the cool... Actually, we had a really... before we got really cool 4-wheel drives that everyone would like point and look at. We had these really silly cars called an escargot. They're just like the
snail.
Yeah, the stupidest looking cars ever. But I remember when the cool cars came and it was like, yeah, this is cool. I'm going to drive around in this. And the novelty wears off really fast.
Yeah.
And I remember that was kind of one of the first times I realized, like, oh wow, everything becomes normal when you do it enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're circling around.
What fascinates me though is like, what's behind that?
Yeah.
What's behind, I need, like, the newness of things.
Okay.
I find that fascinating.
There's a discernment there then. Let's play with that. So between need and want. So if you knew that no Ferrari, no bank account balance is going to fulfill you. No material experience is going to validate your godhood. Perhaps this is the thing that you and I are orbiting right now. So if no external experience is going to give you value, then you go find value elsewhere, which I think is what you're inferring. That's
it is, but there's also this really weird thing. Like I remember when we went to Europe for a holiday and we just got upgraded into like this amazing Mercedes-Benz, and driving around in it, I was like, this is so shallow, but I was like, I'm the fucking shit. Everywhere you rock up, everyone's like, everyone looks and they're like, oh, that's a nice car. You rock up to relatives, that you haven't seen for ages or have first time meet, and that they think that you're the shit because you rock up in this thing. And it's a weird, what fascinated me about that experience is like, what is there in me that enjoys elevating myself above other people? That's fascinating to me. Like, it's like, where is the lack in me that goes, I need a thing to prove my worth. I need a thing that gives me status and makes me important, because without it, I'm not. That's what I find fascinating.
Yeah, well, it is. I think it's fascinating.
And eventually it doesn't.
What if, sure, I mean, this feels quite like pitching towards the monk-like qualities, but things work in a few ways. So if we said, what if once we get clear, and I'm articulating it as if it's a finite, a binary threshold that you cross. It's not really. We fall in and out of alignment with ourselves. But once we experience enough in the world or in our own inner world to be clear that, okay, my value comes from somewhere else. Like that adage we were talking about the other day, if you cut off arms and legs and melted off your face and there was nothing left but a heartbeat and your own innate energy. And if you can get to the point, even just a 10-second window in your life where you're like, that's actually the most beautiful part of me, is the thing that is left. In fact, all my value is left, that the value comes from my essence and not from the other things. Now, let's say that we could normalize that in a binary way and turn that on. And so it was always on. And in a way, that's what we're always talking about, is being able to turn on our value being drawn from our divinity, the thing that can't be created nor destroyed. It's always there. You're always done. And so they go, what's life for then? I'll leave that question to hang. But if that were true and online and embodied in a person, then what else would be left to do? Create. So create from a place of fulfillment. I'm already fulfilled, and yet I'm also infinite by my very nature. So I can't really be ever fully fulfilled. There will always be more to unfold. So nothing that happens out here will give me any primary validation. I know who I am and what I am. And part of what I am is an insatiable creator. And so what if, in that moment in the Mercedes, it was what you felt like about yourself in it?
Of course.
That when you got out of the car, those people could not help but orbit you in that way.
Yeah. Interesting.
And what if it wasn't inherently caustic? What if it was a beautiful moment? And maybe both are there.
Like the instrument, it's an instrument for the.
I don't think you felt elevated above those people.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I just felt really fucking cool.
I know you. You felt really cool, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's like what you're saying, like what rings in me when you're saying that is like it's just the instrument for you to realize the true amazing nature that lives inside every single person, and you can live in that place with or without those things, and it's up to you whether you want to do it that way or not.
Yeah.
It's just a.
This is a different dialogue now. So, if I did you create that moment? Yeah. Did you allow it in by allowing yourself to feel bigger? And it's not bigger than them. It's bigger than you felt you were
beforehand. Yeah.
And then there's an element of that that's like, oh shit, I was always this big, and I was just holding myself back because of some ideas or something. Somehow that's never stops happening. This is so much more beautiful than we give ourselves credit for. Life is so much more beautiful than we're allowing. And somehow that's always true, because the journey's never done. So we're always getting out of our own way a little more to allow a little more through. So you have this exalted, might be too strong, you have this rock star moment of getting out of the murk and strutting a bit and just enjoying yourself, just enjoying, allowing that part of yourself to bubble up and out. So the Mercedes and the reactions are echoes of a primary thing going on. First within, second without. Getting the horse before the cart is the Abrahamism of it, Abraham Hicks reference there. So I was chatting to a friend on the phone the other day, and I don't know why I used this analogy, but she was talking about something she wanted to create in her life. And it's like, well, what we do is we draw on the concept that it's not this intellectual, but we are infinity itself. All of it is in us already. So we flick through the teledex. That's the quirky thing, the metaphor that popped into my head at the time. So teledex.
You're going to have to explain what a teledex is for some of you.
Teledex was this little box that you would flip open, and it would have...
it's your address app on your phone.
It is now, yeah. So everybody you knew had their address and their phone number, and you put it next to your phone.
Carbon version of that.
The 80s were a beautiful, tragic time. So you as if you have whatever you want is inside you already, and you can flick through that teledex and find it inside of you. If you desire something, that means the coordinates are active inside of you. The energetic coordinates exist inside you. You can go and find them. And if you can soften enough to feel what it would feel like if those things were fully active in your life right now. So even if you've never experienced a really beautiful, compassionate, reciprocally loving romantic relationship in your life, somehow your soul knows it's possible. Your soul knows it's true. And I would add that all the experiences of not that, underwhelming relationships, of not feeling seen, of not being given the sort of human provisioning of space holding or whatever it is you would desire, because you've experienced so much opposite, the actual thing you covet is sharpened and refined, and it's in you. And yeah, it'll become more the more time you give it, more granulated and more distilled. Yeah. Certainly permission. So, but flicking through the teledex, you can go and find it first. So find it first within you. Go and find the self-worth of what it would be to normalize driving a $200,000 Mercedes and pulling up to the whatever and giving the keys to the valet and then moving on. And I would offer that it's because we don't need it, because it's already inside us, that is one of the things that gives us permission for it to just bubble up.
It just triggers the thing that's already inside us.
Do you try to grow your plants in the yard? The sun doesn't try to shine. The rain doesn't try to fall. Things just happen when we can hold the right energy signature to allow their passage up and out of us. And some of it, I would invite any of us to coexist, to sit with and see how it feels. But the idea that it's naughty to want certain things, that it's not okay, that it's not spiritual. I don't think there is a desire in us that isn't innately divine. And when you tune into it, you might find that, okay, now that I actually sit with this, I see that I just want a bit more self-worth, or I want to experience a deeper connection with something. And that can play out any way we like.
No, I hear what you're saying. Like, anything can be, I mean, I know you don't like the reductionist thing, but like for me, say, a kid in a candy shop and they want more candy, or they steal some candy.
Yeah. Like
even behind that act is, in that way of thinking, is a desire to be more, is to have more, is to maybe not have more, but is to ignite that feeling inside yourself of abundance or limitlessness. It's really interesting. I think while you were talking, I had this feeling of why don't you give yourself permission to be enormous? To just be as massive as you can possibly conceive yourself to be? Why do you make yourself small? And I'm talking to myself perhaps, but also talking to people I know and people who are listening. It's like,
real people you mean?
Yeah, real
people you know, people you've experienced emotional exchange with, and you're like, there's so much more of you.
It's almost like, what is the pattern that's running inside you all the time? Is it, stay small and stay safe and keep contracted, or is the pattern be as big and expansive and expressive and all of your isness, be the biggest version of that you can possibly conceive?
Yeah. I think there's a part of us that wants to, I can say with confidence, what am I trying to say? Start that again. It feels very natural to me that there's a part of us that is unrelentingly expansive. Cyclic, so, sine wave going up and down and things, so unrelenting might not be the best word, but we are moving up and out all the time. And, inversely, we're moving down and in as well. So we can really be with the human experiences that arise, and that really did hurt. And I know that hurt. And so the flip of it is I'm really excited and expanding into the opposite of that. Heartbreak inspires incredible future relationship. Lack inspires incredible future resources, incredible future resourcing. Driving a shit bomb car inspires what it is to pull in the fancy $200,000 jobby. They're all romantic dance partners to excite and ignite. And I think of it as like an elastic band pulling you down into the depths so you can feel some stuff, find out what's even more true for you, usually through interface with discomfort. And then once it's been met, the elastic band releases and you launch up to a higher ascension than you've ever been able to reach before.
And that you could without it.
Exactly. And from the tippy top, you then get inspired to go perhaps deeper than you've ever been able to go. Yeah. And you descend and the rubber band pulls even deeper into the mud sometimes. You clean up a little more. You coexist with a little more. You're able to be with her. And there's a wonderful nuance. I say her. It feels natural to me to relate to those dissension moments as feeling orientated and chaotic and yin for me. Like the goddess comes from the form of the earth, like Gaia, like all the earthly things. And so descending roots into the ground, into that deep expression of truth and authenticity.
For me, it's kind of a fascinating concept to, when you're down in the doldrums, I don't know if this is what you're intending to say, or even describing. I don't know if this is what you're describing, but that concept of when you're down and in the doldrums and being pulled into the muck, as you described it, like, is there a way for you to go, all right, here we go? Like you're preparing for the launch up.
Yeah.
Like that's such a fascinating reframe.
You mean the launch? Like
Yeah. Like I guess if we're getting this
is really shit right now.
Yeah, we're getting this
things
crappy.
Are about to get really good. You could argue that's what spiritual growth is. It's the ability to coexist with the dissension and know that this is for me. This is happening for me, through me, as me, in me, by me, but it's not happening to me. I think there's also some beauty in holding it. The part that does see is it's happening to me. Indeed there is. But yeah, that's the higher holding. So how much I did this, I brought this in. And the ability to do that without self-shaming. It's like there's no blame in it, but there is levels of accountability.
Ownership,
that's a better word.
Totally.
I'm going to work with this. And always, if we're working one-on-one with someone, you can kind of feel, maybe if you're operating intuitively in the moment, you can feel whether they're holding back from some of the suffering that's in it. Because like you're using spirituality as some sort of buffer. Yeah. So there's both. How do you do both? But you swim through it more quickly that way and you can launch back up. And I think functioning more and more with openness and self-love, as well as love for the mechanism at play in that dissension, the murkiness of that mud, to be able to coexist with that is a functional definition of enlightenment, I think. A reasonable one. Because it acknowledges that cycling persists, ups and downs persist. And your ability to coexist with the cycle. People in traditional language would perhaps say just staying in witness to what's moving through. for me, that became
detachment
a disconnect. Well, detachment. Detachment's one of the goals of a lot of traditional practice, and I think it's really valid.
Mm-hmm.
But can you stay detached and fully meet that human interface at the same time?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's really obvious if you say, if a member of your family were to die, if anything, a relationship were to break up, that many spiritual teachers go through divorce. Maybe most, I don't know. In our day and age, it's probably 50% or greater in the West that seem to get divorced anyway. So it's a part of our time. It's part of the human experience. I mentioned the spiritual teacher example because I've heard many talk about how very real and raw that was. The greatest of pains. You could argue the greater the pain, the grief is directly proportional to the depth of love that was explored. There's also the trauma layers and stuff that's there too. But you can't have grief without love in duality.
Yeah.
The depth of your love is directly proportional to the depth of grief that one would experience. To the human aspect of us that's obligated, I think. It's true. Now, the amount we've grown, the amount of divinity we've been able to integrate into our being informs how much we can hold that and coexist with it, but it does not diminish its power. It's still the same amount of grief.
Yeah.
Yeah. That holding excites me more than an idea of dissolving so much of your stuff and that your humanity dissolves as well. Yeah.
It's a very different way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And there's this sort of like classical picture of enlightenment of becoming some sort of deity where you're almost translucent. Even the light doesn't reflect off of you. I don't mean to make this sound evil, but I mean a vampire in the mirror, it's not really there in the same way that, there's not human in the same way that we regard
cast no shadow. Yeah.
Human, yeah. But I guess in the exalted and beautiful sense, and as if you've died before you die, but in a really complete way. And there's nothing else to do but turn around and help other people. And I think that we can have experiences of that and hold them. I don't know. All I would say is that it doesn't interest me. Pitching to that goal doesn't interest me. Having a more and more full human experience and being able to meet, I can feel in myself right now a part of me that wants to be more deeply met than I've ever been able to meet it. Now, it could be that that's just a part of the karmic bucket that wants to be transmuted. This premise that we've got hurts in the past, this life or another, that eventually we get to the bottom of the bucket and we take all that, we hold it all, we feel all the stuff that we couldn't feel then, and we feel it all now, and we get to some finite end of the bucket and all the stuff is transmuted into light and we are that wafting around. And I think that is that model in the Hindu culture that I'm familiar with. It's been perhaps a certain kind of enlightenment that's like an avadut, like almost insane on God intoxication. And yet just enough, they remain 1% human enough to be able to dialogue in physical form. And then even examples where they don't, they disappear into a spectre and live in the mountains and enter people's meditations when they are within a certain proximal range. And I think it's all valid. What I'm saying is not invalidating it, but saying that the one that interests me more is being more and more human every day. How much divinity can I integrate into my humanity but without losing it in my humanity? How much of it can I hold? So this premise of being like really taking care of my humanity so that I can be a vortex, or any of us can be a vortex for divinity to enter this plane. And that can satisfy the part of you that wants to do good in the world too. Which, for me, doing good in the world is being the most you that you can possibly be. And the good happens as a consequence. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that brings up in me is can you give yourself permission to say, you're enormous, brother. You're enormous.
Yeah.
Go get it.
Yeah.
Go be it.
Exactly.
You know,
the
like,
second one. Or you already are it.
yes.
In what way today can you get out of the way of that? Allowing yourself to be it.
Yeah.
That's the essence of it.
It's so weird, isn't it?
You're it.
Yeah, you're
And
already
forget
it.
accomplishments that
Yeah.
might happen. They're going to happen. Don't worry about that. They're going to happen. But they're going to happen as a consequence of you being the very thing that you covet.
Yeah.
You can feel it, right? There's something in us human beings that's looking for something. We're looking for something. And eventually you find out that you're the thing you've been looking for.
It's like in my journey, I experienced a friend.
Medicine journey.
Yeah, medicine journey. I experienced a friend with his hands dripping with gold, like with, you know, jewels and all that stuff. And he's looking around. He's looking around. It's like, where is it though? Where are my riches? Looking everywhere except for in his hands. You know?
Yeah.
And that's the very thing, isn't it? We already all are. But I like, I've heard that said many, many, many times.
Yeah. So it's a being transformation
when
we're looking for. It's not a philosophical idea.
It's in me right now. It's just an invitation to unlatch everything. Unlatch everything that makes you small. Unlatch everything that gives you doubt. Unlatch everything that stops you from being relaxed, open, and expanded.
Yeah. This is why I can't stop talking about Paul Pauling and Luke Luking, because it is our essence that drives that out. That's the thing. The thing you are looking for is you. How, in what small way today can you get out of your own way and let more of that up and out into the world? Vocation, purpose,
so simple, isn't it?
connection, it'll all happen as a consequence. If you want a divine relationship, you do it by being yourself in that thing. So go find yourself first.
Yeah.
As frustrating, infuriating as it might be to hear, go find yourself or whatever. But the thing you are looking for is you. How do we get more access to that? Yeah, and language can lose it again. So it's a certain vibration of alignment.
Well, even the idea, and again, this is just my understanding right in this moment.
Yeah.
The idea of finding anything, nothing's lost. It's all I'm doing is I'm squashing things.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I don't know, this is an incomplete analogy, but I'm squashing a bag trying to do the zip up, and it's like, dude, just get off the bag.
Yeah.
And just open the whole bag up and let it just all spring out. You know? Like, just stop.
I had an experience on a variety of medicine one time by myself, and it was something like, it's a pretty vulnerable thing to share actually. Something in a mask fem lens, which should come as no surprise, and experienced myself launching up to a new plateau that took the form of a new landscape as yet unexplored. And there's the goddess, and there's me adopting the form of her masculine counterpart, and her there with all these spoils, like treasures, and you could get the feeling that they were anything you could possibly want. Exalted experiences of your own divinity, abundance, deep relationship, like anything the human or whatever else might desire, the things that we covet. That level of satisfaction and feeling met and feeling realized in the world. I've made it. There's something that's occurred. And naturally we never really make it and we keep continuing. But in this specific experience, it's like, I can't give you the spoils of this new land, this up-leveling in your being. I can't give you all the things. You can't realize them materially until you crown yourself king of this new plateau. We're burgeoning into a new space, and I would love to, but the system is set up such that you have to self-realize.
Gotta claim it, yeah.
You have to claim your crown.
Yeah.
You have to be it and step into it. Inversely, you're in your own way if you won't declare it for yourself. So crowning yourself king, declaring who you are to yourself, and then she can release all her gifts to you. So that's just a sharing of experience. I'm not offering an opinion, I suppose.
I feel like I'm more describing a realization of how small I've been playing it rather than. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
That's what that kind of feels like.
And it's the precipice you're playing with in real time right now is incredible. I'm also offering it's all that's ever going on.
Yeah.
Somehow this is, I think I've mentioned the analogy before that the eye of God sees us as on the crest of the roller coaster. Things are incredibly exciting and they're about to get better. It's our perspective, like you say, perspective is the most important thing.
Yeah.
It's our perspective that shifts. And I would offer that it's natural for its perspective to cycle.
So when you get into a funk, for example, would you then invite people to go, where have I put the blinders on? Where have I made myself small? Where have I restricted myself?
Yeah, you could. In some ways, that's what we do when we space hold for others, because they're unlikely to come to us unless there's something they want to work through. And the working through would indicate that they're a little overwhelmed. They're probably more likely in a descension trough than an ascension arc, though that they can, you could be curious in an ascension arc too, I suppose. And usually it's actually feeling orientated. In my experience, it'd be like, what can I hold a container for you to feel? So what I'm pointing to is it's less about solving intellectually, and more about transmuting energy. So when you say,
I know, but what I'm searching for, is I'm enjoying the feeling that is surging through my body right now, which is one of unrestriction. Basically, I don't need to finish that sentence. It's just one of unrestriction, and to stay open in that space. I then also recognize that I have those moments where I'm not that. And so in those moments where I'm not that, I'm looking for or hunting for
a way to get back there.
Yeah, a mechanism or a reminder. How do I remember myself in those moments?
Yeah, so what I'm offering is that there's beauty in the forgetfulness.
Yeah.
Just like we were saying,
the
universe intervenes. Of course. No, but that's
stuff.
a natural momentum and compulsion. The desire to reconnect with self is how you quantify how beautiful union with self is.
Yeah.
By experiencing that disconnect. You're describing the primary mechanism of duality, to separate into not and then surge back into the presence of. From not to it, or whichever language we want to play with. So when you say, when I'm not that, how could I remind myself of that? And I'm saying, well, the invitation is actually to work with the forgetting. Which to me is to feel what's there. There is beauty in the separation from self that you've drawn into your life. And the primary way to bring yourself back to that is to transmute the energy of the contraction, which is what I'm saying is just to get quiet and feel it. So if you go, I was God yesterday, where the fuck am I now? And it's like, well, you're going to be more God than ever off the back of this.
Is this your elastic band?
The system isn't broke. Yeah, yeah. And usually it's feeling. So how do I work with this feeling? So in more, I think it's more new agey and particularly more yin lenses to see the world. It's about descension, allowing yourself to descend elegantly. So to cycle, kicking your own ass would be the trouble. Another thing, rather than allowing it, someone asked a question in the pod a few weeks ago that was, how do I get back to I think I used the analogy of you're trying to walk back up the mountain. At some point, that'll force you into sliding down into the dirt and gravel and graze knees of going downhill and then getting to ascend up an even higher mountain the other way. The way you get back up the mountain is by going down into what's present, moving downstream into what's there. It's as if the universe is saying, we're taking you there. We're taking you exactly where you want to go. Here's the feeling you've got to coexist with to expand into 150% of what you've ever, or 1,000% of what you've ever been able to hold of yourself before. The game's rigged, bro. The game's rigged for you to win. It's constantly throwing opportunities at you for you to stretch yourself and transmute the stuff, the grist for the mill, into a ever bigger version of yourself.
I hear what you're saying. I guess what I'm Because I remember this feeling from a month ago, say, or
or
6 weeks ago.
yesterday for me, like whatever it is.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess what I'm saying is it's a long time between drinks for me right now for that feeling. And
You're saying you're feeling more expanded than contracted?
No, more contracted than
Yeah.
expanded.
Yeah.
And I'd like to remunerate that, like I'd like to, change that.
Well, at the risk of repeating myself or pulling teeth or whatever, the invitation would be, what feeling are you avoiding feeling? There are different paths, but that is the most ecstatic one for me. I'm trying to find the right word, and that's the right word. Like thrilled for a being to meet themselves. Not to heal, not to traverse, not to catch up to their potential. All of that feels really limiting and like an idea, but to meet themselves. To recognize aspects of self left out in the cold. To integrate these parts. It's crazy. It's like some things like dissolving old relationship patterns and going, oh my God, I thought I'd be devastated at that relationship falling away. But what I notice in that other, I think, is relief. I think I can feel relief in them that I'm not asking for them to come along with me. And replenishment in me that I was pouring energy into a direction where it turns out it wasn't particularly wanted. And I was giving unseeing, invisibly. I was insensitive to it. I couldn't see it or feel it or touch this energy leakage. And what I notice is I've stopped doing that. They're relieved, and I've got this surplus energy that I was giving away. There was no good guy or bad guy. There are good and bad behaviors. There is safety and non-safety. Those things are very real. But once all that is seen and met, new boundary lines are drawn, new relationship structure is erected. Safety is cultivated and maintained more or less. More often than not. Then this energy gets to re-enter us. It's movement. Our inner world is like a circuit of energy going round and round, and now there's more of it in the circuit. And it can feel like actually being more illuminated. Like you're emitting more light because there was an inefficiency and now there's less. And you could say, oh yeah, what we just said was I got out of my own way. And by doing that, I removed an inefficiency and I revealed that I was already more than enough of myself. What I was looking for was inside of me already. And that's like a functional granulation of that. So I wonder, I'm a person and I've experienced expansion and I want to move back towards that. I'm noticing that I'm not even there half of the time at the moment. I'm there only a third of the time, and I don't like this. I'd go right into not liking it. The pain's already there. It's not hard to find the pain. So this question's less of a question and perhaps more of a statement of current feeling or a statement of the chapter this person's working through. So we might just read it as a statement, full stop, discuss. So I'm working through layers of vulnerability and tenderness, and I keep uncovering new layers that need care and repair. Please discuss. Working through layers of vulnerability and tenderness, and in that flight, I keep discovering that there's new layers that need care and repair.
I mean, you would say that goes on forever. That there's just a deepening, an inward deepening and connection of the experience of ourself. Wouldn't you? I think you would say that.
Yeah, I do. Which invites, what is healing even a thing then? If it goes on forever you couldn't heal infinite wounds. You'd have to create new ones.
I certainly feel like there's so doing EMDR for some trauma that I went through.
So
for me,
EMDR is
eye movement
psychology
desensitization
technique.
Reprogramming. Yep.
Yeah, associated with accessing deeper layers of the brain by sedating more superficial layers of the brain, or soothing or preoccupying with essentially like a swinging pendulum eye movement occupation. So the idea being you can capture the attention of more superficial layers of the brain as they watch the pendulum move, and then you can dialogue through trauma in a more deep and penetrative way, an ideally safe way.
I understand it a little differently.
Oh, wow.
My way of understanding is that when we experience trauma, we remember the moment with the overwhelm of the trauma attached to it.
Yeah.
And that what you can do is so then when you go to remember the moment, it's overwhelming. And the latest not the latest, but we understand now that when you remember something, you don't remember the original event, you remember the last time you remembered it. And therefore you can bring that moment back up into your present state. Then you can use the left and right, the pendulum kind of movement will naturally de-escalate the feelings of the overwhelm attached to that memory, because you're not in that state currently, but you're mimicking REM sleep. This is one of the theories. And then you get to pack that memory away without the overwhelm. And in fact, the reprogramming, the R part of EMDR, is that you can then put a positive or affirming statement attached to the trauma that you can then remember. So I've got memories that are incredibly traumatic that I can talk about because I don't feel the overwhelm anymore from the experience. I would go into a traumatic event and I would lift it out and experience it, and then I would slowly turn it from a 9 out of 10 to a 4. So the first time through 7, next time 7, then it's a 6, 5.
Yeah.
So anything sort of around the 3 or 4-ish was our kind of benchmark for, we can leave that there and reprogram it. But then what I would find sometimes with some traumatic things, I'd love to give an example, but it's probably a bit close to the bone right now. But I would lift that memory off, and there would be all this other stuff underneath it. So, for example, I could give a roundabout example. So I felt like this event that I went through was punishment. And I realized that came from my childhood, from wanting to help my mum in the kitchen, and there being a misunderstanding. I might have been stressed or whatever it was, for whatever reason. There's no blame in this, but I got yelled at or a smack or something. Maybe I did something that, was responded to, that overwhelmed me at the time. And that traumatic blame of hey, that thing that happened to you, that's because you're bad, was linked all the way back to this memory of me standing in the kitchen being 3 or 4 years old. And so as you unpack those things, there's stuff underneath them, I think.
So you were describing exploring something as an adult, exploring a trauma you experienced as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Both the trauma and the therapy were both during the adult time frame. But while exploring it, you got access to some childhood stuff that was probably resonant and synonymous with the trauma you...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it had informed the way that I'd put that away. All of the thoughts and feelings I'd put away, the shame or the blame that I'd put away with that memory. And I think I feel like it's... I don't know if it goes on forever. I think I'm gonna completely change my. I think it does go on forever, but perhaps it gets more and more subtle, because I know that the more and more trauma that you put into a vessel, the harder and harder it is to be connected to your true self and your divine self and your open, expanded self. And therefore I would then postulate that the more that you release and the more that you open, the clearer you become the more relaxed you become, the more grounded and centered you become. And there probably is always stuff, but it just becomes more and more fine and more refined, and takes perhaps a longer amount of time to find it or feel it, because you have to get the vehicle to become so crystalline to be able to experience it.
Yeah, this is why I'm often playing with the discernment between, well, is it wounds to be healed, or is it contrast generated through the experience of duality? So because we're in a space that we can experience not having quite enough of something, given where we're now coming from. So we're growing to new heights. We're now occupying one of these, from the plant medicine example I gave before, we're occupying this higher plateau, we're normalizing. And from here, I desire different things. Wow, that's new data. Desiring different things. Are they valid? Well, yeah. So we're then playing with, well, I'm experiencing not enough of this. I'd like to experience some more of this, and welcoming that in. Now, whether that absence and desire for more of a thing, which really is, I want to unfold more of myself. I want to give this self the experience of that part of itself. It's like I feel a whole new flavor of joy by traveling this part of the world with my family. I've never experienced exactly this magnitude of that. That looks like a worldly experience, but really it's an access to self. And you could say, well, you should just experience that in meditation at home in the cave. It's like, it's not the same without my people and without the smells and the sounds. And it's not really about the physical thing, but the physical thing is resonant with this deeper part of myself I'm now dancing around with. And it's that aspect of self that precedes it. So there's always a limitation in language. Or put differently, two things can be true at once. That we are talking about the transmutation of karma, but that somehow that sort of patterning goes on forever. And it can become something more like, well, it no longer feels like addressing old wounds quite so often. And it feels much more like having ups and downs and lefts and rights, so that I can differentiate what I'm really inspired about, and therefore who I am in a clearer way.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful example. You could feel the realness in what you're sharing around the potently intense trauma to coexist with, and then to traverse it and find something apparently totally different,
obscured,
and yet deeply related.
Yeah,
that's really compelling and juicy.
Well, it shows the relationship, or I guess relationship's the wrong word. It shows the kind of beautiful unveiling of that trauma can help you work through. Like that thing of being the 4-year-old, like that memory was nowhere in my consciousness. It was in my subconscious, obviously. Yeah. But it was just there, just playing out. Is it Jung that says, there's someone, you probably will, but there's a quote that's kind of like, I'm going to butcher it, but it's like, if you're unaware of the particulars of your subconscious, then you'll be at the whims of it. Like I murdered that. It's way more poetic.
I don't know the Jung quote, but essentially your blind spots run your life.
Yeah.
I mean, hasn't that been your experience?
Yeah, of course.
Failed relationships, failed business ventures.
Yep.
What other areas of life are they?
What other failures can I list publicly?
I mean, everything's so relational. But they do. Or you could look at that arc revealed that one and that one and that one, and that's advocacy for shadow work. It's great. It's not language I use very often, but I admire it from the sidelines. It's undeniably relevant.
What's its own reward, which is, you're kind of rewarded for being brave, and rewarded for being courageous with your own vulnerability and your own unfit pieces, the things that you don't like about yourself. Or
part of the rub that you say, like the kind of, I don't know if it's Freud and Jung, but the idea of deep diving into the traumas of the past and kind of occupying them and dwelling there, so you can unearth these blind spots. And then the Abraham Hicks thing is like, we just think you are rehearsing the same vibration and therefore recreating it vibrationally over and over again. And that's sort of observably true as well in your story, that there must have been some resonance between the adult trauma and the childhood trauma, and it's as if it's echoing through your decades until you're able to coexist and transmute it fully, meet that little boy.
Well, my understanding of it now, and it's just my interpretation, is that the entire reason that was packed away as you being punished was because of the event with the child. As the child, sorry. So that thing of like,
so the
this
adult
happened.
That happened.
Yeah, this thing that happened is
like
because you're a bad person, because you are punished for doing something wrong. Was linked all the way through from my 4-year-old self, packing away that moment and not understanding. I was just trying to help what happened. But my 2 cents on it, I feel like if you just are unpacking trauma and you aren't doing anything with it, like if you're not actively trying to find an equilibrium, find a place of acceptance, find a place of, to dissolve it, then
to coexist with it without dysregulation.
Yeah, then yes, you are. All you're doing is just shaking up. You've all this silt on the bottom of your person, and you're just shaking it up and muddying the waters of your life for sure.
Without progression, is the assertion there. Yeah.
But I think if there is active work in unpacking it, repackaging it, and putting it back, so it sits on the bottom, and maybe this is a terrible analogy, but in a more solid form. So when it gets stirred, it doesn't actually muddy the waters anymore. Like it's kind of
I think I know it gets to.
It's like it's like it's all this dirt and stuff, and you scoop all the dirt up and you compress it into a rock. And it still exists inside you, but that understanding is that compression of like, that did something for me. And you still live with it, and you put it back into the stream of your life, and it sinks to the bottom, but then it doesn't murky the waters when you feel triggered. Like that trigger disappears.
Yes.
But I feel both of those things are correct. I feel like the Jung, Freud thing and the Abraham thing are both correct.
It's created tension in my system because the Abraham thing is something I adore. I find it like it feels like the playfulness of God, which like a Krishna nature thing to me. It just feels like unlimited capacity and therefore play and therefore fun, and it can really dissolve some of perhaps the unconscious tensions I was carrying around monastic disciplinarianism or something, tapasya for tapasya's sake, like discipline, death by discipline. It feels really true to me, but that's been a point of tension, is like, and yet I've had such gains from therapy, and my landing point right now, these are, you can't intellectualize everything.
Yeah.
And so these things can't necessarily be captured by words, and that can be a cop out because we could say anything, gloss right over and go, this is, so we're trying to earnestly and authentically find the best capturing of these truths. The best one I've come to through years of sitting with this very conflict inside of me. It's like, well, do we want to deep dive into this trauma stuff and revisit the stories, or do we actually want to create the opposite story more and more and more? But then if you force yourself into a happy story when you're vibrationally at a very different emotional place, you will occupy the emotion regardless of the story you're telling. So if you're not, and you and I have both experienced this because we've talked about it, but if you're experiencing a bunch of lack, oh my God, there's not enough to pay the bills, and oh geez, what is next month going to look like, and what about the people that are dependent on me, and how do I dig myself out of this one? And then you go, no, I need to think more clearly. I need to think different, happier thoughts, better thoughts, more abundant thoughts. I need to grab this by the throat. The truth is that the emotional state is in lack. And no matter what you say, you will emanate to the universe out this lack, like a pulse. And it's going, okay, I'm going to give you more lack. It doesn't matter what you're saying or what you're thinking, not primarily. speech and thought do matter, but primarily what matters is what you're being. So what's the solve for that? It answers the other question too. Where is this midpoint between trauma exploration and wanting to adopt a new story? It's feeling. Where am I? Where am I on a feeling level? So explore traumas, certainly clinically, therapeutically wonderful, but you do it through a feeling lens. When you talked about how do we get to a point where we're not just stirring up the silt and it's just muddying the water and then not progressing, it's just settling back down for the next day to be stirred up, is you feel it. Stirring it up would be just telling the story. We tell the story so we can feel a thing we haven't been able to feel before. This is where language, like reincorporating aspects of ourselves left behind. Feel stuff we haven't been able to feel before. I think of listeners of the pod will know my reverie for Ram Dass. Reverie might be too strong. Oh, that's about right. I do love him and his body of work, and one of my heroes. But part of why he's so heroic to me is because he's very human the whole way through. He's very adamant he didn't attain the enlightenment goal that his teacher did. And he wanted to. So he had deep reverence for what attaining the goal was. But he embodied so many wonderful things, and some of it's the muck of it all. If you listen to his recordings in the 60s and 70s, he's still half a psychiatric PhD lecturing in an amphitheater kind of thing. He's much more mind orientated, and then you hear him another decade later, and he's talking about how high on his own bullshit he was, and he keeps ascending and transmuting, and he gets lighter and lighter and lighter. He has a big stroke. The irony of one of the great orators of his time, I don't think that's too much of an overstatement. His ability to condense esoteric knowledge into consumable stuff for a Western audience was amazing. And for that being to lose his ability to orate is not nothing. That's an irony. He's got these little doco, Fierce Grace. A graceful thing that happened to him was the capacity to let go of that and become a bigger version of himself, not tied to that siddhi, which is a Sanskrit word for like a superpower. His superpower was his ability to public speak like that. And the fierceness was the stroke, in case that wasn't obvious. So part of his brain dying and never resolving completely. Really beautiful. And something I discovered like 20 years into listening to his stuff was a chapter, because there's just such a back catalogue of content, that when he talked about, I left the psychiatric world and entered via the portal of psilocybin and then LSD, entered the esoteric world that landed him eventually in, I don't know about orthodox, but Hindu practice under in a guru-disciple relationship. And then his life adopts a very different track. But then he talks later on about chatting with somebody who perhaps used to be a mentor, or somebody really established in the psychiatric space, if I'm remembering it right, someone who he deeply respects enough to really listen to about his own inner machinations, someone he's willing to sit under the umbrella of and be vulnerable with. And the guy's like Dick, because he's Dick Albert. It's like, Dick, you've developed yourself so much spiritually, astoundingly. It might be time to do some relational, psychological development. And the way he tells the story, he's like, wow, I felt real truth in that and wanted to explore it. And then he does. He goes back and does. I don't think he articulates the form. He may, but it didn't stick in my mind. But the point was to go back into the really human elements. That to me is moving back into the human. It's not about his relationship with God in a direct, in a overt way. Maybe in subtle ways and indirect ways, because everything is. But it's about his relationship with people, his mom, his dad, his brothers, and whoever else. And as it happens, that's probably quite resonant with me, because that's a similar arc to what I've followed. Not on purpose, drag kicking and screaming much of the time, but to follow, to go into that. And it feels to me like a lot of spaciousness was made in between my identity and working out that I wasn't human, that I was this other thing, and dancing around in that space. And I would call that the really refining my relationship to the ascending qualities in me, the up and out, the masculine, if you like. But leaving a great body of work and an imbalance by not having done this other work, this relational stuff, this human stuff, what it is to be human, what it is to be a mammal. The sentient species on our planet happens to be a glorified monkey that lives to relate, that lives to build a village. It's not an accident. And so to move back into that and see the shadowy stuff within human relationship for me. Yeah.
This question has a few components. Does evil actually exist? Is it necessary? Would we know the light without the dark? Can we accept evil as necessary? Do you want it again?
No, I think that's pretty good. Thank you. Well, it's topical. It feels like what we've been talking about.
Shadowy.
In lots of ways, it feels like what we're always talking about. I mean, so given we've talked about it a lot, the process then becomes what feels like it wants to be said out of this. Not like, how do I give a complete or I don't know, potent answer or something, but like what actually wants to be said. And what moves up and out for me is, of course, no. From a spiritual perspective, there isn't any evil deed. There is only unconsciousness. It's a thing in the Conversations with God books that's like, everybody does the right thing or the best thing available to them given their current model of the world.
Yeah.
So, and in that book they actually explore Hitler the chapter I think is called Hitler Went to Heaven. It's like this whole thing on Hitler. It's incredible. There should be there would be a trigger warning today, but 20, 30 years ago there wasn't. But yeah, just a concept. So there isn't really evil. But piggybacking on to what we were talking, not from the spiritual lens, because people are only operating from asleepness. And asleepness is what we're here to work with. It's part of the nature of duality. Another part of the nature of what it is to be human, part of the nature of duality, part of the nature of this dissension aspect of the human experience is to want to be authentic and to want to be fully human and alive. So when things are, at least to that human aspect of ourselves, threatening, destabilizing to safety, that we respond, that we find that place inside of us that is threatened by that thing. I mean, we're the caretaker of self. No one else can be, particularly once we're not little kids anymore. But there I am. Am I being honest with? I don't like this behavior. Am I being honest with myself about the amount of damage it's doing, or the level of under-threatness that I'm experiencing? As men, we can default to caring for other really fast, and there's also all these there's masculine qualities in women, and there's wonderful nurturing qualities in women as well. But I know experiencing in men, we were talking about it last night actually, that if you're a part of a community as a man, and Paul and I were at a kids sporting thing last night, and if there's a bunch of little kids, and this is actually true of last night, we were the only men there.
I didn't even clock that. You're right.
Yeah, well, there was other
Yeah.
teams training and stuff, but we were the only men there. If all of a sudden, and we have experienced this, if a less grounded, less intentional, like it's not there, it's the village chief kind of model. If all of a sudden a different kind of masculine energy traversed across the field, you'll notice part of your biology respond. So if all of a sudden a dude who looked like he might not be so steady, he's not traveling with women or children, and all of a sudden he walks out across the pitch, or gets a little close to the space, what's funny is there was an energy like that for a moment it wasn't threatening, but it was an unknown quantity. And all of a sudden, somebody came and somebody had lost a phone. We can edit this bit out. Maybe I don't know if it's going to land, but it actually did happen last night.
I didn't see that.
When you were in goals and I was rolling the balls. A guy was coming over and I thought, is he one of the girls' dads? I've seen his face before, but what's he doing? He's not saying anything to me. Is he politely waiting? But he was odd. And so I found a vigilance inside myself, just noticing. So if we fall into these innate roles, and are they the absolute truth of who we are? No. Sometimes would we put too much pressure on ourselves? Yes. Is there beauty in naturally stepping into some sort of masculine holding of a group like that when there's yes, of course there is. It's one of the most natural things in the world. We live in a complex time where people might argue that that's way too archetypal and old world. But that's not what I experienced in my nervous system. I experienced the beauty of it. That if an unknown energy behaving in a strange way was to enter that space, it will catalyze a response in our nervous systems to straighten our spines and lower our voices. It's not conscious. It just happens. Another thing that happens is that if you might be, as a man, I'm not trained in fighting or anything like that, apart from some little bit of karate till grade 4 or something like that. So I don't identify with that at all. That or a person might be a bigger than average guy. But if you're not trained in fighting, you're smart enough to know that you could be torn apart pretty easily. What's interesting is as soon as one of yours is under threat, adrenaline pulses through your system and you lose the ability to feel pain to some degree. And I'm not saying that we're not allowed to be afraid of threat, because we are. One of the beautiful and kind of, very fierce, but kind of numb and blunt parts of being a man is that, and women in different ways, for sure. There's stories of women lifting cars up over babies and stuff, but is that once that trigger happens, we become biologically brave. So I don't think it's the same as being actually brave, but it's a very convenient thing, because and I've had it, like when, somebody I'm close to is under any element of threat, you tend to displace your body in between them and the threat. Walking in between the road and a woman you're with, or holding your children's hand, or putting your hand on your kid's shoulder or something in just the right moment. These things all happen all the time. So they, to me, speak of the elegance of humanity. And they probably wouldn't exemplify themselves so clearly without threat. So we would miss them if we were over-spiritualizing life, and that there is no evil. Ultimately, no, there is no evil, but there is threat. You're allowed to lock your door if you want to. Women can be very deliberate about the way that they walk home at night, if that's what feels aligned. I think what I'm pitching to is not practical advice, heaven forbid, but it's about a different quality of spiritual practice in which we deeply and reverently honour our limitations and our finiteness. We are capable of doing anything, but in so many ways we came here to be us, just us. It's so beautiful to be 85 years old and to really inhabit what it is to be frailer than you used to be. Another Ram Dass reference, like, oh, we're all getting old and geez, it's hard to move about, and geez, I just don't have the energy anymore. And he's like, what an optimum time to sit and really sit. And yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. But it's a dialogue about does evil really exist? And the answer is no, but in really wonderful ways, yes, because of what it can polarize and catalyze in your experience. And thankfully, we don't have to forego that broader spiritual outlook. That's not the invitation. It's not that one disproves the other. The fact that men can't birth babies just yet.
What do you mean?
Don't. I kind of hope we were bold enough to leave that joke.
You could take it further.
Oh, you think? Why do you think I yelled "don't" 3 times? The fact that men can't have babies doesn't make them any less beautiful. It's another form of polarized duality. The fact that women can somehow still does make them exquisitely beautiful. The fact that one might not be able to or would choose not to, yes, the invitation is to see exquisite beauty in that too.
I completely agree. I feel like, it's really simple. We live in duality, light and dark, cold and hot, here and there. So when we perceive something that is not, the goodness and the open-heartedness that we strive towards, we see it as not that. Whether that's evil or not, it's a matter of perspective.